Hello, I am Zakadel Gaming, and hopefully you enjoy this video over Legends of Grimrock. I plan on making this into a full-fledged playthrough, but currently this is just my first video and more of a test to see how my computer can handle this and how my mic sounds. Hopefully it doesn't sound like complete trash, but we'll find that out later. This is gonna be fun. So, as I said, this is going to be a playthrough. I'm going to be playing on normal difficulty. I'd rather not get murdered right out of the gate, even though I have a bit of experience with this game. But at the same time, I don't want to breeze through the game. I do actually want some sort of challenge. So, normal difficulty will suit me just fine, and it'll suit the purposes for this game. Playthrough. Sorry. I will be creating my own characters. I do not leave any chances to random number generation because I know how badly that can screw people over. Trust me, I've been there. As you start the game, you kind of notice that there are click to add prisoners. You have a group of 4 that you can play with. They can either be a human, minotaur, lizardman, or insectoid. And they can be the class fighter, mage, or rogue. You've also got various other stats here and traits. These all kind of mold how your party will react. And each race and class have their own benefits. Humans, while they don't get any stat benefits, they do get the highest amount of skill points available to them at level 1. Or level 0 technically, but level 1 for our purposes. Minotaurs. While they get only 1 skill point, and they do use up food a lot faster, they get a whopping 5 extra strength, I almost said dexterity there, a -4 to dexterity, a +4 to vitality, and a -3 to willpower. For the lizardmen, they get 3 skill points, just 1 below the human, and 2 dexterity, but -1 willpower. Finally, for the races, we have the insectoid. -2 to strength, +1 to dexterity, -2 to vitality, +4 to willpower, 3 skill points, and they eat food at slightly slower speeds, or they use up food at slightly slower speeds. Now, to understand what strength, dexterity, and vitality, all these stats are, we actually need to look at them ourselves. Health and energy, kind of obvious what they do. Strength, these are all really self-explanatory, so I don't really need to go over them, but I will anyways. Increases your melee attack power, and strength will increase your melee attack power and carrying capacity. Pretty easy stuff, but or pretty self-explanatory, but I feel like I need to go over it. Dexterity. This is a fun one. This is for your ranged users. This increases your accuracy, which is your ability to hit an enemy with either a melee or... actually, yes, with a melee weapon. Evasion. This is if you are worrying more about dodging away from an enemy instead of just taking the punishment by yourself. Vitality. This one is gotta be the easiest one to explain. This is your health points. Your health is reduced to 0, you die. This is a very helpful one. Believe me, I've felt the pain of whenever I don't have enough health. And last but not least, willpower. This one dictates your energy, which is this little bar here. It will be represented blue in game. This allows you to do special attacks with your weapons or spell casting. So really this is one that's important for magic users. There's also the different resistances here. Let's go to fighter. As you see, whenever I switch through like the classes, fighter, mage, and rogue, pretty simple, you see that their skills change. Athletics, while we can't see the full skill tree in this Spark game, each of these do their own little things. Physical, so physical ability scores, so your strength, your vitality will go up with this. Eventually, dexterity and health will follow. Armor. This is the nice one. This is if you're more worried about taking damage and tanking it, which, if for those uninitiated, tanking is basically being a meat shield. You take all the damage for your team. Protection is more of lessening damage than altogether negating it. Altogether negating is for evasion. But here's the crux of it. Evasion is random number generation. Sure, having a higher evasion score will give you more often a chance to evade a strike, but if you get hit by evasion, or if you get hit, you take the full damage. Protection, sure, you may not evade every strike, but you can lessen it down to where instead of taking 10, 20 or more health per hit, you're now taking a more manageable amount, say 5 or so. Now, that may not seem, and that is a drastic difference, and it may not seem like much, honestly, in the beginning, but it really does help out later game when your characters reach up to level 10. Or 10 or higher. Okay, fighters also specialize in axes, maces, or swords. There's also one-hand and two-handed weapons, each of them falling in this, and this basically increases your ability to use certain weapons and your proficiency in them. And bonuses from each category, each skill with either axe, mace, or sword only apply to an axe, mace, or sword. And then finally, we have unarmed combat. This one is a particularly fun one, because instead of wielding a weapon, you punch people to death. That's it for the fighter. Now onto the mage. As you can kind of tell, air, earth, fire, ice, these guys are dedicated spellcasters. These guys are not going to be in the front line. If they are, you're doing something wrong. Or everyone in your party has died. Which will happen. It really just depends on what type you want to go with. Generally, fire magic is probably the best course that you can take, as it gives you the most some of the better damaging spells. But there are other times where you need say spellcraft or staff defense. Generally, fire, spellcraft, and staff defense should be the three that you actually really go for. I'm not quite sure, because it has been a little while since I've played this, that air magic may have one or two very nice spells, mainly like fire shield or something of the like. Very helpful. Let's see if I can talk today. Apparently I cannot. Especially, there we go, thank you. Especially if you wish to survive. And then we have the rogue, the standard backstabbing sneaker. He also has unarmed combat, just like the fighter. They also have throwing weapons and missile weapons. The difference between them is throwing, well, the difference between throwing and missile is pretty self-evident. One is like a bow or a crossbow, whereas the other one is you're taking a knife and chucking it at someone. Rogues also have the ability dodge. This increases their evasion and makes it to where they have... Basically, rogues aren't meant to wear armor as much. They're meant to wear the lighter armors to where they are not given an evasion penalty. That's where fun comes in handy, because these guys are the most likely to die if they're in the front line, unless, say, your fighter who's wearing the amount of armor is just one shot by something. Finally, you have daggers and assassinations. I personally, for the longest time, hadn't found a dagger, so I don't find a use to have a rogue in the front line anyways. And daggers are kind of few and far between, so I don't think that this is really worth it. Assassination, useful, but very situational. For instance, backstabbing, the double damage one attacking from behind. There's only going to be a few times where you can actually get behind an enemy for a long enough time to make that useful. Reach attack is really the only one that's useful, that I would say is great for this. Well, at least with what we can see so far. Attack with melee weapons from the back row. This is nice, mainly because you can just sit with, say, like a spear or whatever. Or not a spear, spears have reach. But you could use a sword and attack from the back row, which is something you wouldn't normally be able to do. So, really, if you're going to have a rogue, there are two ways that you could really do this. One of them is by going and putting these in a back line, so one of either in the 3rd slot or the 4th slot, or when you get into the game, just manually moving them into the back line, and just going with missile or throwing weapons, because either way you're gonna get a lot. I would kind of say more throwing weapons than anything. Mainly because of rocks, throwing knives, shuriken, the list is endless. Sure, you do get a bow and arrow at some point, but by the time you get that bow and arrow, you're more than likely going to have probably anywhere from 8 or so different throwing weapons. So it's really up to you which one you would go, but I like throwing weapons more. The other way that you can go is going with dodge, or as some people like to call it, doge. And unarmed combat. This takes the rogue from being a stabby McStabberton or a backline person into a frontline fighter with the use of punching. Basically, you become a monk from various other games. You dodge around the enemy and you pummel them to death with your fists. And this is a kind of personal setup that I do here, is that I'll go with a Minotaur, turn them into a rogue, and go throwing weapons. Right. And then also doing strength, because their throwing weapons scale off of strength. You'll also want some dexterity to reduce your accuracy penalty. But other than that, you should be fine. Then from here on out, I go with some form of fighter, or 2 fighters, and a magic user. Reason for a magic user is because I like shooting things with basically fire or whatever. And currently I'm only going to get 2 because that gets me the very first spell, Fire Burst. Other than that, I will save up. I will put in the other into Spellcraft. For the 2 fighters, well, you could do this either way, but I'm going to have it as 2 fighters. I would normally change this person into a rogue and then do dodge and unarmed combat, but from testing, I found that I've kind of died really quickly with that. So, I'll put in 2 in armors, and 2 into unarmed combat. Actually, Never mind. This should be interesting. Rogue.
Killed yourself with your own drip mine, didn't you?
So I will have a fighter, a rogue in the front line, more mainly on evasion. A Minotaur rogue in the back line, throwing weapons at your face. A mage to basically nuke the hell out of you. And the fighter to basically soak up damage. And for now, I'm going to give him all 4 into armor. Let's just random generate the names, because I don't want to see new prisoner 4 times. So, I also have to kind of set this up.
I want to set these bits right.
Kind of recommend don't having more than 1 Minotaur. Because, the food consumption does get pretty nasty. With him being our fighter, I'm going to buff his health. And buff his accuracy and evasion a little bit, because he kind of needs it. Finally, dexterity. Let's make his dexterity that high, and his attack power this high. Good ears, and almost obligatory, do this. And for the love of God, do not leave a mage with that low health. You at least want to survive a hit. So, clicking to add traits, and here is the list of traits. Each of them kind of do their own little thing, and some of these, as you can see, are race specific, such as the Headhunter for the Minotaur, or Minotaur, however you wish to pronounce it, and natural armor for the Insectoid. One moment. Okay, my apologies, I got about to go for a moment. Generally, there are ones that are really good, and there are other ones that are really bad. For instance, the Insectoid trait, natural armor. There really shouldn't be a reason why you have an Insectoid in the front line, mainly because of their stats are not good with fighter types or rogue types. I mean, yeah, the 1 dexterity is good, but -2 strength and -2 vitality, that really puts you in a hurtful spot. Insectoids are really more main as a magic user. So you should get the strong mind to increase their energy even farther. And let's see, there's some nice other ones as well. There's increasing attack power.
It was basically.
You're a caster, you're not going to use that ever, because attack power is different from spells. So I'm going to go with skilled. Just give myself an extra bit boost in spellcraft. For the Minotaur, or Minotaur, however you wish to pronounce it, you've got the Headhunter. You get 3 attack power for every skull that is in your inventory. Skulls, they don't weigh that much, but the problem is that from where I am, I've only found 1 or 2 skulls. Granted, I know this is kind of a more late versus early game planning, but I don't really see the use in it. Not saying that it's a bad one to choose, by all means. It's probably really good and really useful, just not where I need it. Aggressive, however, gives you more attack power. And with a throwing weapon, you're going to be throwing things. This is very helpful. As for this, really just getting your accuracy out of the negatives will be fine. So, possibly picking something else would be a good one. But, seeing as I don't really see any really good ones for this point, I'll pick Headhunter. Sorry, just saw the perfect opportunity. There's a story behind that one. Let's see here. For this, attack power plus 4 versus attack power plus 6. As you can see, I am maxing out this guy's evasion, and I'm giving him Fist Fighter. His punches will hurt, you'll barely be able to hit him, and you get to have some added fun. Oops, wrong thing. And seeing as I'm not going to be wielding any weapon at all, this will work. And finally, for the fighter, we have the evasion. That one would be bad, but an extra 15 health right off the beginning isn't too shabby either. Extra vitality, that's nice. Extra attack power, that's good. Really, it depends on your playstyle and how you want to play a fighter. I normally want to actually have this person survive fights. So, I think I will go with Dexterity. That only increases my accuracy by 2. So I think actually I'll go with Aggressive. So, we have our party here. Pake, or hold on. Arzum, let's say that again. Arzum, the human fighter, who is tough and aggressive, and really good with armor. We've got Murloc the Lizardman. For any of you that play World of Warcraft, you'll appreciate that joke. Ooh, if I could import the portrait, that would be even better. Who is evasive and a fist fighter. We've got Gamganli, I think, the Minotaur Rogue, who is aggressive and a headhunter, who will specialize in throwing weapons. And finally, we've got Ransan, the insectoid mage, who has a strong mind and is skilled. So, with this setup, let us begin the game. Mount Grimrock. I'll let you guys just kind of read this by yourselves, so I'm going to mute my mic for a sec. Oops. Okay, I'll turn my mic back on here. There are going to be other points where text will appear on the screen, and I'll ask if you guys actually want me to to actually read that myself, or if you just want me to mute my mic, and we'll keep it on from there. So, with that, I will end the recording here. Please tell me any recommendations that you have, or how you would like me to go through this game. So, that's all for now. See you guys later.